All right. Hello, everybody out there in social media land. We are the Flint Public Health Youth Academy, and we are here for another episode of A Youth Perspective. I am Dr. Kent Key. These are our youth interns and our mentors who you will hear from in just a moment. But we just wanted to take this time to, one, thank you all for being our faithful listening supporters and viewing us every other week, show after show. You all never let us down with the views, and we're so excited and so thankful for you understanding the importance of having a platform like this to elevate youth perspective, and more importantly, to give youth a voice in real life decisions around real life situations. Again, we thank you. This is the Flint Public Health Youth Academy, where public health is everything and everything is public health. So on today's show, we're going to talk about two different things. We're going to kind of give a recap of our Youth Health Summit that we just had at the end of May. It was a wonderful two-day affair. It was awesome. We had a lot of youth, a lot of parents, a lot of organizations involved. And again, we were just so thankful for all those who came out. And then we're going to transition over to our, as you all know, a couple of shows ago, we talked about what we were going to be doing this summer with launching our gun violence prevention campaign. And so again, we're in that work. We're launching this campaign, and we're hoping to get as many of you all to be a part of disseminating and having conversations around gun violence, not only with your friends, family, and loved ones, but your coworkers and your children, because gun violence and mass shootings are becoming too prevalent, and we refuse to allow this to become a norm. So again, we thank you all for joining us, and we're excited today. So I'm going to turn it over to some of our interns. I'm going to just call one name out, and for those of you who can come on the camera, please do, because right now all they see is myself, Cole, and Everett, and Cruz, and there are several of you on. But if you can, I want you to just, greet the people however you want to greet, no particular way this time. After the greetings, we'll go into our discussion. So I'm gonna start with Cole, and then Cole, after you do your greeting, whatever it is, it could be what up, though. It could be, yo, I'm Cole. That's all I got to say, whatever. Then you just pick another person until we have had everyone introduce themselves, and we'll continue in that format. Cole Mays, you're up, sir.
All right. Hi, my name is Cole Mays. I'm going to be attending U of M in fall, and I'm planning to go on to mechanical engineering. I'll hand it off to Cruz.
Hi, I'm Cruz Duhart, a recent graduate from Morehouse College. I'm gonna pass it on to Everett.
Hey everybody, my name is Everett Graham. I am going to be a freshman at Michigan State University in the fall. And I'll pass it on to Taisha.
Hi, sorry, right now I can't show my face, I'm driving, but I'm Taisha Brady. I am currently attending Mott Community College for sign language interpretation, but I probably want to change colleges right now. Mott's been being a little iffy for me. I'm thinking of going to MSU, not sure yet. I'm passing it on to Seema.
Hi, I'm Seema. I attend Genesee Early College, and I'm starting college classes soon, and I do get to go to GCI. And for my GCI classes, I will be doing digital art and design. So
Awesome. Who you passing it to, Seema?
Melissa?
Hi, I'm Melissa Mays, and I'm a mentor here at FIA and a water advocate and mental health worker and community health worker here in Flint. And I'm going to pass it off to Kiara.
Hey everybody, so I actually don't have a voice right now. I'm so sorry, but if you can hear me, I am one of the mentors. I'm from Flint, Michigan, and I am in my last year of law school.
And looking like a diva. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Pick somebody.
Did Cruz go?
Yeah. You got Christian, you got Amir, you got Monisha.
Okay, let's go with Monisha.
Hi, hi everybody. I'm Onisha. I'm one of the mentors slash staff, and I work at Michigan State University. So what I'm doing, I will pass it to Amir.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Amir Brown. I go to U of M Flint. And yeah, nice to have the conversation with y'all. I'm gonna pass it over to Briante.
Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Briante Brown. I am a FIRE mentor, and I work with NAACP. I serve with NAACP and Michigan State University. Thank you, and it's a pleasure.
And since you just came on, Briante will pass it on to Christian.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Christian.
Thank
I'm a little under the weather, but I'm just finishing up here at Mott, and I'm planning to transfer those credits to catering for automotive engineering. I'm trying to feel better.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Christian. All right, so on week before last, actually, we had a powerful 2-day health summit, a youth health summit. And this was a partnership with the Flint Public Health Youth Academy and the Community Foundation of Greater Flint. And it was two main focuses on this particular youth summit. One was to do a report back to local Flint youth and their organization leaders about the great work FIRE have been doing. You know, you've been doing these health campaigns for the last 4 to 5 years. You've been doing photo voice projects for the last 3 to 4 years. You've been definitely having since 2020 a wonderfully supported youth talk show called A Youth Perspective, and not to mention all the other projects that we've been doing. We did a lot of COVID messaging stuff. We did a lot of, some of you have done things for other organizations. We taught other groups how to do qualitative coding for their research. We've done a lot of work, and we partnered with so many groups. And so we wanted to provide a platform for other youth to hear what you all were doing. And so on day one, it was here at MSU on a Friday, and literally Friday evening. And literally we had about 57 youth and probably a good 12 to 17 adults in the room. And so who would like to kind of give an overview of what we shared on Friday? It was an awesome, and I'll help whoever you all want to do it. And then we'll do the same thing for Saturday. So who wants to share about what they saw? Go ahead, Everett.
So on Friday, we got a chance to kind of just like Dr. Keith said, is kind of report back to some of the people from our city about the good work that we've been doing, not only in our city, but abroad as well. And we just kind of ran through all of, I want to say achievements, because they were that FIRE was able to accomplish over the past few years from, you know, our program's beginning until now. And then we also, you know, gave a little insight onto what we were doing moving forward. So we talked about, you know, the photo voices we've done. We talked about the different campaigns we've done. We talked about APHA. We talked about our more recent trip to Chicago, where we were working with the Amputee Coalition. So we just kind of gave a brief overview of what we have been up to. And then we also gave a little bit of insight on our racism as a public health crisis work that we done. So we kind of just ran through that presentation as well, which we did present that at APHA as well. So we just kind of ran through that as well, you know, gave our statistics, gave some feedback from the people who went through that program. And that was pretty much what we did Friday.
Thank you, Everett. Anyone else that attended Friday want to chime in? So I will say it was awesome. Go ahead, Amir.
Yeah, so overall Friday was there's a very good atmosphere. We had all the different organizations there. food, just interested in the games and just what FIRE is all about. And yeah, it was dope to spread the mission of FIRE and really let the kids know that we're there for them, and hopefully they'll be contributors in public health in the future for sure. So it was dope.
Yeah, and one of the games that we played was our CSI public health global epidemiology game, where our young people were able to basically solve an epidemiological outbreak and really become junior public health scientists on a global scale. And so that's always fun when you see the young people engage in that manner. And so again, that day was really kind of reporting back. I know Melissa and Taisha gave their experiences of being a part of FIRE, as well as we talked about the upcoming gun violence prevention campaign and what our plans are. And we announced that the Flint Public Health Youth Academy, in partnership with the Black Millennials for Flint and Mott Community College, that we are doing our annual summer camp. And that is actually open. The applications went live, I believe yesterday. And so we're excited about that. That'll be in July. And so more information about that to come. And we definitely will have some of our participants and partners on our up and coming shows to talk about the great work that will happen in that summer camp. So that's exciting. So on day 2 of our camp, which was that Saturday, we were over at the Food Bank of Eastern Michigan in their conference center, and our partner, Community Foundation for Greater Flint, led that particular day as we did Truth, Racial Healing and Transformation. We had some healing circles, we had some visioning circles. It was really awesome. Anybody want to share what that experience was like that was there that Saturday? If anybody's on here from Saturday, let me see.
I do. I'm so sorry. Every time I've been trying to talk, because I've been trying to press the button while I'm at a red light, it just wasn't happening because the light would keep turning green. Saturday, we got to introduce ourselves and the groups we were with. We also did a racial healing circle. That was actually pretty fun. That was like my favorite part of it, because we got to talk about things that we've experienced and we related to each other on a whole nother level, other than just like a listening level, but like something that like hits you in your soul kind of level. And we also did, in our groups, we got separated into groups of 3. We also were asked questions, and with those questions, we had to write down our thought, what we thought would be a good answer to it, what would be a great solution to it. One of them was, oh man, it's been a minute, sorry. One of them
it was the visioning circles.
Yes, there we go.
How we saw Flint currently, what we would like to see, what we needed to do to get there, right? And that was awesome. We probably had another 50-something youth and another 20-something adults show up for that. And so again, another power-packed weekend showing the power of Flint youth. And again, for those of you out in social media land, it's so important, because just remember 9 years ago, the whole world had a narrative about Flint youth, that Flint youth were going to be so negatively impacted by the water that because of that lead exposure, the IQs were going to drop and wouldn't be prepared or have the scholastic ability to achieve academically. So many narratives. The narrative about aggression and not being able to control anger, because we know lead impacts aggression and the inability to do that. And so all of these narratives went out, and our young people are just countering these narratives, I mean, by leaps and bounds. And so we're so excited about that. Anyone else want to say anything before we go into the talks about our gun violence campaign?
Day 1, I apologize. I went to go spend a little bit of time with my nephew. He just came. So day 1, outstanding job by our youth, all of them involved. There are so many different groups and different organizations, and some people just representing Flint. which is also like one of the most amazing things, because before you, most of the time in this community, if you're from this community, before you're a part of an organization, you're a citizen of Flint.
That's
So
right.
it was very impactful. Being able to introduce ourselves and speak so different. Everett and Kayla, they did a great job as MCs, and I think that the games that we played and the interaction with Fire was amazing. Day two, another amazing day. Um, Again, the involvement and really being able to, I came late myself, unfortunately, so I missed the healing circle until I came a little bit later, near the end of that. Still, we did get a chance to showcase how we're all interconnected some way and somehow. And one of the most important things was really how these different organizations and groups really wanted to hear the impact, the not impact, but the input. There we go, the input of our youth. So a wonderful day, a wonderful job, and the summit was amazing.
Thank you so much. And again, we want to give a shout out to the Community Foundation of Greater Flint, to all of the youth serving organizations that supported that and who brought out young people, as well as adults who really stayed and who really wanted, not only just came, but who really were interested to hear what the youth were doing and what they had to say. And so again, that's always awesome. Anyone else before we transition? All right, so let's talk about this up and coming gun violence prevention campaign. Again, for us, what spurred this was really this last decade of mass shootings, but more recently in the last years, 2 or 3 years, even during quarantine and up, we just started seeing them every day. Not that they weren't happening then before, but literally just the exposure that this was happening so frequently, and that there really were no safe zones. They were just happening everywhere. And so we really wanted to provide a platform for youth to really talk about gun violence, violence overall, but specifically hone in on gun violence, and then also look at it from that prevention, that public health prevention lens on how we can create solutions to gun violence. So what we're going to do now is we're going to ask everyone that's on the panel to consider these following questions, okay? So the questions are, if you were to create a gun violence awareness campaign, one, who would be your focal audience? Who would your audience be that you would target for this campaign? Two, what would be your key message? What would be the takeaway you want them to walk away from your campaign knowing? And then three, how would you energize the community to support your campaign? So again, if you were to create a gun violence awareness campaign, who would be your focal audience? What would the takeaway messages and the key messages be? And how would you garner or galvanize community support for it? Anybody want to go first? Anybody want to try out? Those are your 3 questions. And you don't have to have some deep philosophical. This is just off the dome, how you're feeling in this space, in this moment. And if you've been thinking about this in a very deep way, again, you're able to answer from that perspective as well. Everett, I see you're up.
Yeah, I want to start by saying that I haven't necessarily thought about it from a deep way. When it comes to conversations about this, I find myself often looking more towards the conversation surrounding it, meaning like, you know, what are people saying, my friends, what is my family saying about it, what are people on social media saying about it, and then I kind of take those into consideration, and I kind of formulate my own sort of opinion on it. So with that being said, when it comes to identifying an audience, for me, I would have to say that like we need to have things targeted for every audience, whether that's the elderly, whether that's the youth, whether that's men, women, whether that's like in between, like wherever, we should have a message or messages catering to, any and everybody, just because there are so many different points of view surrounding this issue that it's really hard to pinpoint, one situation, say, okay, we're going to talk to the youth or we're going to talk to the adults, because you think like, hey, we talk to the adults about it. They're the only ones who, are, legally able to obtain these weapons. But then when you look at the statistics, a lot of these shootings are happening from people who aren't even legally able to obtain weapons like this. So I feel like cultivating a message that is either inclusive to everybody or cultivating multiple messages that specifically target different communities is the way to go about it. But then as far as what that message would be, the answer is kind of the same. Like, everybody needs to hear something different. Some people need to hear regulation. Some people, need to hear not having it at all. Some people need to know how to use them safely. Like, it's really hard to just, group everybody in and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. And then if we are going to do that, then we need to make sure that, if we're going to say, hey, we just going to get rid of guns, we need to make sure that there are no, like, yeah, you can keep your gun because we know you hunt. Like, if we're going to take them away, we're going to take them away. There isn't going to be 3, 4, 5 people who get to keep them, or, these people can have it, but these people can't. Like, because then it's just, to me, and after hearing all the conversations that I've been seeing, it's just not fair to say, hey, we're going to take guns away from all these people, but like, you can keep your gun because you like to hunt, or you can keep your gun because, you like to go to the gun range, and not necessarily because those people are the problem. But if we're gonna, get a solution, let's get a solution that really works, that really dives deep into the problem. We don't want to attack this issue just on the surface level. We want to make sure that, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it right. Because just because, that person, takes their gun and goes to the gun range, that doesn't mean the person who, breaks into their house or breaks into their car, steals the gun, or the kid that, was playing around in the house and finds the gun is going to make that same responsible decision. So when it comes to the whole gun violence thing, that's kind of where I'm standing on that front.
Thank you, Everett. Awesome. Cole, saw you wanted to go next?
Oh yeah, I was also gonna say everyone, because everyone, I mean, there really shouldn't be anyone that is excluded, just as Everett said, because everyone can be a threat with a weapon, and everyone can be a threat with a gun. But the whole problem with like how to do it is like make it accessible for everyone, because if you kind of cater it towards like older folk, then it's like the younger folk get kind of like left out. But if you cater it towards like, vice versa, and also it's like you don't want to be like super preachy about it, because you want to speak to the reactant people who are like who kind of just do things because someone told them that they couldn't. But that's hard, that's challenging. So it's like everyone is the way to go. It's just, how do we exactly do that? I've been thinking about this, and I'm not entirely sure how yet.
And that's why we're having these types of dialogues, because it's something as a nation we have to figure out, And so I want to put pressure on those that haven't gone yet, because yes, we want to target everyone, but just in this scenario, if you had to create a campaign right now, and maybe you have the funds or the resources to target everyone, that's fine. But like, where would you start? Because all health campaigns need to be multi-level and multi-messaged, because we have a various type of population. But just thinking about where would you start, and it's okay to say all, but some people may also have certain particular groups that they do want to target. I think Cruz came off the microphone, and then I seen Amir's hand, so we'll go in that order.
Yeah. So gun violence is such a complex issue, and that's really where it starts. because within itself, that it being a problem, there's also a spectrum there of what the issue could be. Because gun violence includes police brutality, it includes mass shootings, it includes gang violence, and so it includes all these different types of scenarios that where you kind of can't have a catch-all. And so I understand where you're coming from now, where it comes to, all right, let's start to put focus points on where to go. And so I agree actually with a lot of what Everett and Cole have suggested, because depending on what age range you're looking at, it's going to be different things. If you're looking for, more older generations, you're going to look towards policy in a lot of cases, and things like that. But when you get to the focal point that I would personally focus on would be around middle school age, maybe like higher middle school, so like 7th or 8th grade, to young adult. And the reason I would pick that group is because with that group in particular, there's a lot of social aspects as well that you can also kind of focus on. And so one of the elements that I would want to be like a key message is the mental health and all those things that surround it. Because one of the aspects that doesn't get talked about enough, I feel like, is the mental implications and how it impacts all the different people around them. So if a mass shooting happens in your community, you no longer feel safe. And what that does to a community, to children growing up there, as well as adults who are in charge of those children and all those different aspects. And so one of the key messages I would want to be pressed upon is, these type of things are permanent. And so we now have to try to prevent them, because what happens afterward isn't going to go away now. And so, yeah, that would be one of my focuses. Because I'm looking at that age range, I would discuss schools, environments where children are normally found or young adults are normally found, potentially suicide and mass shootings and things like that would come up in discussion. And the way that I would engage the community is to host one, marches, but two, as well as events that kind of help bring information. Kind of like how, if you've ever seen a health event where they come and with different like freebies as well as information to help present to different groups, I would suggest something like that. Maybe it would happen in the summertime when younger people are more available. It might happen still on somewhere like a school campus where people are used to going, and really just have a discussion, so where people can kind of like what happened a week ago with the healing circles. Something similar to where people can kind of talk about their experiences and what they've gone through. Potentially have, if people are willing, survivors to discuss how they felt and all these different things afterwards. But to cultivate the conversation of the after effects, so that way we know this is something that we need to solve before. Yeah, similar to like a health fair. And so, yeah, I would suggest events like that, as well as also having community conversations with leadership, whether that be the police force or that be city council members. That way, locally, and this will be a large focus on local instead of like regional or national. But that way, smaller communities can recognize and truly start to address these issues in a genuine way. That's what I would suggest. That way, culturally, we start to discuss this, and that would start to change future generations' opinions on this matter.
Thanks, Cruz. All right, Amir.
Yeah, I really agree with what Cruz was saying, as far as like, having these events in the summertime, just spreading information overall. And I think, I mean, the main target audience for me would be probably exactly what Cruz said, as far as like from middle school to like young adulthood, and even like, for example, parents with like little kids, especially. Because I mean, lately we've been seeing an uptick of, kids getting guns, like little kids getting guns, and then, either harming themselves or harming other people around them. And a pretty bad situation. So I would definitely have, especially like younger parents in there of children that that are gun owners in there that spread information or what have you. Um, I just think overall, I feel like also like the middle school, high school age is very like impressionable. So I feel like it'll be easier for them to spread the message of trying to prevent the gun violence. And yeah, I really agree with what Crew's sentiments were about the whole the way we should format it and lay it out. So yeah, I agree.
Awesome. Anybody else want to chime in and tell us what you would do? What would be your message? Who would be your focal audience? And how would you create the community support that's needed for this type of work?
Okay, I'm gonna try. And if I just sound horrible, somebody just give me a signal and I'll just, slide my camera on off, all right? But I think what Cruz said about there being so many different levels to gun violence is important to consider. For me, from a legal perspective, I'm just tired of the redundant argument because, the right to bear arms is a part of the Constitution. And so it's not going anywhere. We're not going to regulate, like if they were going to be regulated, it would have been done by now. Unless we become a police state where we're going door to door to collect everybody's guns, then the amount of guns being available is not going to change. And so the only thing you really could do is work on preparedness. I think that gun safety is very important. I think that opportunities are important because when you go and have these sessions where you're talking about, the badness of gun violence and all of the negative things that come from it, everybody knows that. They might not care, but they've heard those things. We had that little lion man come in when I was in elementary school. Was the lion talking about guns or was he talking about drugs? Somebody came to talk about guns. We've learned these things, but there's still kids out here going around shooting people, going around carjacking, killing each other. And mass shootings is a whole separate issue. And so because of the different issues, there's a different way to address each thing. I really do think resources and opportunity will take away a large group of, especially minority young kids that are like under the age of 18 committing these violent crimes, being interested in these violent crimes. Because it's crazy to me. Like it's a couple Florida rappers. I don't know their names, but like one of them did like a cover of the 1,000 Mile song. And he was saying like who I smoke. He was naming these little kids that he shot. But he was like 15 and he talking about all these other little like 15-year-olds that he killed. And then one of them kids did a cover of like Fantasia song saying When I See You. And then he like took the news clip of the birthday party of like a 15-year-old that he shot. And then was at his gravesite. And these are like, between the ages of 13 and 17. These aren't even like young adults. These are kids that just don't care. And they don't care for a reason. It's because they don't think there's anything else. So why try? Why try? I'm not gonna sit in school when I know I'm not going to college. I'm about to work at McDonald's when I can trap and get more money. Why try? I do think that they know what death means. I don't know if they grasp the concept of how permanent it is, but I do think they know when they're ending a life and they set out to do it. As far as mass shootings, like that is a mental health, public health issue. And I do think the average American doesn't need machine guns. Machine guns is a different issue. And it's like the government is worried about immigrants and not these arms dealers. Because they're not making them guns here. They're not making the heavy machinery that are used to carry out these. They're not making those in America. You know what I'm saying? Black people not buying in that Dollar General. You know what I'm saying? Like the arms dealers are not the focal point the way they should be. And those were those heavy weaponry are coming from for those mass shooting events. I mean, it would be nice if we didn't have to have them. You're not gonna tell me a gun law that I wouldn't, I mean, a gun statistic that I don't agree with, because I do know that having guns in the home increase the likelihood of something happening. But I do have guns in my home. I'm a single Black woman in America. And I can for sure tell you that nobody getting shot at has ever been like, I'm so glad that I don't got a gun to shoot back. Like, this is, nobody said that. Nobody said that. So I think being prepared, knowing how to use a weapon, knowing the severity of a weapon are things that we need to focus on instead of beating a dead horse on the fact that we don't need guns, because we're way past that. And it's not coming out of the Constitution.
And you make a good point, Kiera. And again, that's why we're talking gun violence prevention. I don't think we'll ever prevent all guns. And like I said in one of our previous shows, everybody hates gun until someone with the gun comes and saves or protects them. So it's a full conversation, and that's why I love this group, because we're able to really talk about it full circle and to really have the type of discussions that are needed. Briante, were you coming off to share what you would think for a gun violence prevention campaign?
Honestly, Kiara said just about everything I was gonna say. Like I agree. Because like I kind of really don't want to say that, but like if we remove something from the Constitution, then that makes it fair game for a lot of stuff. Like, how could we even possibly think of that? But there's like a lot of options, I guess, for gun violence prevention. But like, just like she said, it's really about caring. Just like public health, really, you gotta care. And that's my opinion.
Got it. Anyone else want to chime in? So until someone, go ahead. Who's about to say something?
I was gonna say what Kiera said really made me have a thought back to one of the conversations that I was kind of getting into surrounding gun violence. As a person who has grown up around guns, you know, being properly taught how to use them, when to use them, and things like that. It's always been a curious thing for me to kind of have that conversation with someone who didn't grow up like that, because a lot of people view guns as like bad things, you know, things that only can do harm. But then you have the people who use them for sport, like hunting, or they go to the gun range, and they have like a whole completely different point of view on it. And when Kiera was talking about the fact that like we will truly be able to get rid of guns, or we'll never be able to say like, hey, everybody come drop your gun off, like we just go call it a day. Like I truly don't think that there ever will be like a point in life when we do that. So one of the things that like I was thinking about for like prevention was more gun safety. And like I don't even really want to say gun safety, because like there's nothing really about a gun that is safe because even when you are using a gun like safely, there are still things that, you know, could happen. But just one, like teaching people how to use guns and like teaching them when to use guns. And then if we're going to, you know, have guns as a part of our society, there needs to be more places where people can go and use them. Like me personally, I know of maybe 3 or 4 ranges like in the Flint area, but I can guarantee you there's a million times that, you know, guns in the city, but we only got 4 places where people can, you know, go and use them in a safe, controlled environment. So like maybe that's another thing that we can do if people are going to like want to continue to, you know, have guns around and we're going to continue to use them, then maybe we should have more places where, you know, they can be used, so people are not just in the streets, you know, letting shots off on the 4th of July. Like, let's have more gun ranges, or let's have more places where using a gun is the purpose, and that we can secure that, and we can make sure that the people who are in this space are safe and are responsible.
So I want to say something, then I'm going to turn it over to Melissa. Cole made a good point. He said, you know, they changed the Constitution regarding, you know, alcohol or tobacco tariffs. And we know that they amended the Constitution allegedly about African Americans and enslaved people being 3/5 of a human being, even though we know it still manifests in systems. So there are ways to get it changed. But again, the broader conversation is more than just is a gun right or wrong, or should all guns be taken away? It's more so, there's so many pieces to this whole gun violence conversation. And that's why we have so much to talk about during this campaign. But I'll stop and let Melissa go ahead, then I'll chime back in. Go ahead, Melissa.
Well, that was just where I was going to go with it as well. Is I don't think the conversation is get rid of all the guns or else, I don't think that's what it is. I think it's, it's a dangerous weapon like a vehicle, and it needs to be regulated, and making sure that people who have gone through the proper safety and who have the licenses, like Sweden does, they have more guns and the big ones, all of them, but they don't have the mass murders and the consistent shootings and the deaths like we do, because there are far more responsibilities. So I think that, it's the same thing of where we've come with cannabis. I mean, it went from being, a felony and people got locked up for it, to now it's actually being regulated. And, there's things that can be changed and done. We just have to move with the times. But I think that the media and politicians have weaponized people's fears of losing control over things, and losing the fear of, of owning something that's theirs, and losing a right. As a woman, I absolutely understand the fear of losing rights. That people think, oh, they're just coming for my guns. Nobody's gonna be knocking on the door taking guns. That's not gonna be safe for anybody. But acknowledging that guns do exist. Do we need all the types of guns? Are there, like, the rifles that we need, that kind of question, but also looking at what can we do to make things more safe? How can we regulate it to where, hey, if you want to go shoot at the range, there you go. But yeah, there's really interesting and very effective regulations and safety courses and things put in place in countries like Sweden that allow people to have all the guns they want, but it's just done safely, and innocent people aren't getting shot in their homes, like the 3-year-old toddler that, got shot in its own face. And then, you're not seeing the mass school shootings and all the different, church shootings and all that. So there are ways it can be done. We just have to do it smart, and we have to really, really kind of pull the public's,
You got on mute. You muted yourself.
done.
All right, I think I heard you say something about pulling the politicians, something to that extent. Then you got on mute. Then you unmuted.
No, I had a call come in right when I was saying that from a politician, oddly enough. What I was saying was that we need to pull politics out of public health, because when they politicize public health crises like the Flint water crisis and COVID, everything just goes to pieces, so it just needs to be focusing on what's best for the human safety and public health.
I absolutely agree. And to Kiara's point, my issue is with people having what I'm calling guns of mass destruction. You should not have the ability to have a gun that you can wipe out an entire classroom in less than a minute. Like that's just not needed. I'm not saying that you can't have anything. I'm saying, why do you need that, right? I'm also thinking more specifically about the gun culture and how we're being socialized to become desensitized to the destruction of guns. How many games are kids 6 and up playing where they're getting rewarded as snipers for killing people, random people? How many games are out there where we are promoting this type of like violent behavior, and parents are buying the games, parents are putting this stuff in front of their kids, and then we act shocked when it happens. So there's another level to this campaign that's also talking about culture and socialization and how we're being socialized to accept it. I think I mentioned before, I love movies, and I'm guilty. Some of the best movies are the movies with the most action. The newest movie that I saw on what's the app everybody get? Not Tubi, not Tubi, but on Netflix. On Netflix, The Mother with Jennifer Lopez, it was awesome. But I was like, why am I in here? All this shooting, all this killing, and I'm loving it because I too have been socialized. When we think of action, we think of shooting, blowing up, those types of things. And again, it comes from the fact that when there was little Cruz and little Kiara and little Cole and little Everett and little Melissa and little Seema, we were in front of television watching cartoons that also socialized us, right? Again, trying to watch, for some of you who are a little older, Tom Eat Jerry, right? Or, you know, Wile Coyote is trying to blow up the Roadrunner. Like, these are things, and every hero had a nemesis and they fought. Superman had a nemesis, Batman had a nemesis, Wonder Woman had a nemesis, you know, He-Man, She-Ra. It was always some type of combative nature, but more so now it's straight up just these kids have games that could just be snipers on a roof, killing random people, getting points. And it's really to the point to where this effort to desensitize the general public is really like showing that it's been effective. Go ahead, Cruz.
Multiple things came to me. Going along with what you were saying with video games, I think a lot of that is attached to how our country also views war and military, because that's the basis of a lot of those games. It's the concept of, because you're a soldier, you're supposed to do these certain things. And so maybe there needs to be a disconnect or a separation of what it's like to be a regular citizen in America. And that mentality shouldn't be brought, or at least carried on here. But going along with that, like I said, I think now where we got into in this discussion is that, yeah, it really does matter who you're aiming for, whose attention do you want to draw with this, with all these different ideas. So one of the things that Mrs. Melissa got to when is accountability. And I think that's a really important aspect of this conversation, but that really relies on, you know, the older generation, whether that be 18 to however old. It's people who legally do have these weapons and can now vote for how we're going to deal with them. And I think that's one of our largest gray areas, is that we haven't really addressed that problem in America, of that even if we do have this conversation of guns aren't bad, people are, we don't really have the full conversation. Okay, well, if some of these issues are people issues, what are we doing to solve them? And, you know, why are we enabling some of that behavior? And so, yeah, I think that's where a lot of it now moves to. So now it's still socialization, it's still cultural, but now it's, you know, responsibility. You know, let's reinforce those aspects. When we look at youth, it's now, you know, learning the responsibility, if that makes sense, or how do these things impact you later in the future, and all those different aspects. And so I really do think a lot of it has to do with, you know, what we're deciding to accomplish. We're deciding regulation and policy. We really should be targeting older people, and that now needs to be a conversation of what type of things do you want to put forward, and where do you want things to go. And some of those community outreach aspects now can be, I guess they would be similar to youth, but they would be different in how they're being discussed, if that makes sense. But I think that might actually be a more larger problem. Instead of like it being smaller community based, we might need to move to like national.
Absolutely. Kiera?
I'm sorry, I was trying to figure out how to change the hand color, but anyway, Cruz, you had a good example. I mean, you said something that gave me a perfect example. Last week, no, 2 weeks ago, somebody broke out the glass of the law school, like smashed the doors on the law school, right? And usually when it's some type of crime, they give us all of the information about it. We didn't hear no more about the glass being broke at the school. So of course we in a group chat, like, all right, that means one of the students did it. Later on, we find out that one of the students did break the glass at the law school. And the reason why there was no more information given is because they're not kicking them out. Now, number one, we can probably assume what they look like. Because if they look like me, they would have been kicked out. Let's start there. Number two, y'all saying that y'all gonna choose to work with this student because he was upset because of his grades. So he took a laptop and broke the glass of the law school doors. And I'm like, Number one, if I did that, I wouldn't be here. Number two, that is not a natural progression of anger. Okay? So no, I don't feel comfortable with you saying we're gonna get this boy some resources and we're gonna help him out because he's just in hard to law school and his grades are bad and woe is him. Because them are the type of people who go then shoot up the school. I don't fail the class. And it never occurred to me that I'm about to go break the glass of the law school doors. That never occurred to me. I don't even think my bad grade was my fault. And I might have jokingly said I'm gonna slash somebody's tires, but I ain't say I'm gonna go smash no doors of the law school. And in reality, y'all know I ain't gonna slash my tires. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it was not, I'm going to vandalize the school that I attend to. And coddling that type of behavior when that is not a natural progression of expressing emotions is how we end up people shooting up these places. Because that boy needs to be kicked out. And I plan on telling the dean that. And also plan on telling the dean that she shouldn't have kept him here because she's a Black woman and she should know better. But that's a story for another time. You know what I'm saying? But that is exactly how we get there. We allow certain behaviors from certain group of people and not others.
And that again talks about how laws and how, and again, you can't talk about one thing in America without talking about the big picture, right? So of course, because we're talking about gun violence does not mean that discrimination and all the isms are not going to be in place. It's not going to change the fact that marginalized populations still get treated differently, whether it's going to the doctor, going to the bank, getting a loan, all of this stuff was still happening in the same time that we're trying to deal with these mass shootings. You know, I mean, even with that, how many mass shooters of color got treated to a Whopper on their way to the police station? I mean, let's just keep it real. So we do know that these things happen. And this is, again, the culture and the socialization that has happened in our country. Go ahead, Cruz.
I'm gonna offer a counterpoint, but not to disagree. I do think when situations like that arise, resources do need to be allocated. The issue is that they're not allocated fairly or evenly at all. And so I think we need to start moving to, you know, the mindset that everyone kind of deserves those aspects. But the fact that we don't do it that way, and that's why we're going to have these type of problems that were discussed. But the reality is if something like that does happen, I think you're right. That is not natural behavior. But that being said, that doesn't mean that we can't assist and help that. Now the question is, how much are we willing to contribute to that person, and are we going to do that to everyone? As well as, why is it that they were given this opportunity whereas others weren't? And so I think
that's historic, isn't it, Cruz?
Right, it is.
What's
it definitely we already know the answer.
Yeah. What's the resources that were given to people addicted to crack cocaine versus those addicted to opioids? I mean,
right.
I hear you.
Yeah, and so my gripe is that needs to be universal, and it needs to not be coddled per se, because I think that's when it's gone too far. I agree, but it should be addressed, and just kicking them out, I don't think would also solve the problem, because that might actually escalate things, unfortunately, in some cases. But what I would suggest is, okay, we need to actually be transparent, identify the issue, and then let's try to move towards a positive situation about it. The fact that they didn't tell y'all is a problem. And I think I totally agree. That's a lot of what our issues with institutions are, is that they're not accountable, and they also don't speak to what's actually going on. And so I feel like if we move towards holding institutions, our government, all these different organizations accountable, we would be able to move towards a more safe situation.
So I think Cole made a good point, and we literally have 2 minutes left. Cole, you want to share your point you just made?
Oh yeah, sure. I said that social services and therapy are still socially bastardized as a sign of weakness, both retaining towards their parents as well as their children, that lack proper coping methods. We need to normalize help and resources, and they need help, and everyone deserves support.
Awesome.
Unless you murdered someone, then I don't really know what to say about that.
And-
I'm still
and
thinking about
also,
it
to be
ethically.
clear-
I mean, it's like if you kind of hurt someone to the point, I'm not sure how to really rationalize that ethically. Not really sure how that goes.
Well, so the
I'm
point,
still thinking
Cole,
about it.
is to get the help before you get that far, which is why I said the boy need to be kicked out. And you're right, Cruz, that probably would escalate the situation. But number one, I don't feel safe. Because if you threw your laptop through the glass one time, you might throw your laptop at me. My concern is you made it to law school, okay? So that means you at least 22-ish. That should not be your natural progression of showing emotion at that age. It should have been addressed more than a decade prior.
And the scary part, Kiara, is if this action happened because you failed a grade, what you're going to do in a courtroom when the judge doesn't, you lose your case. Like, you know, you're absolutely right.
Or if a girl turn you down.
Right. So
Or if
again, these are behaviors that need to be put in check. And unfortunately, some people get checked more than others in this country. And again, as we're thinking about the people getting checked, yes, he should be expelled, but he still needs help. He still needs resources. We still got to deal with that problem. But to Kiara's point is deal with it outside of the school, because if it had been someone else, they would have got kicked out and they would have to deal with it outside the school. So I totally get it. I'm definitely for mental health. As you all know, we are for mental health. We did a whole year of a campaign looking at mental health across an entire spectrum, from the good end to the bad end, and the things that can happen to trigger us to slide along that spectrum, right? And so I'm totally for it. And again, as we think about gun violence, I'm also thinking about what is the impact of gun violence having on victims and victims' families, and those who are now in fear, those who have witnessed this in real life, mass shootings or even just killings, you know? And so then that's a whole nother level of mental health trauma. And when we think about ACEs and kids dealing with traumas and kids witnessing these things in the school, it's a whole nother generation of traumatized little humans who are going to turn into big humans, right? Who are going to be running the world. So, yeah, we're out of time today. This is an awesome show. We're going to continue this discussion in our subsequent shows as we continue to talk about gun violence prevention, and as we continue to draft out messages and to draft out, you know, share information around gun violence prevention. But more importantly, as we give a real well-rounded 360 discussion, looking at all views about this whole gun violence prevention issue that we're having in this country. So again, we thank you for joining us. Again, we are the Flint Public Health Youth Academy, where public health is everything and everything is public health. You all have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.